Time now for business. Now, South Africa is going to the polls on Wednesday, and 3 decades after the end of apartheid, the governing Africa National Congress could lose its parliamentary majority for the first time, with many voters frustrated with high unemployment and stark inequality. Yuka Roy is here from the business desk. Yuka, tell us more.
Well, the ANC, Tom, as you know, was founded by Nelson Mandela. When it came to power, it promised a better life for all back in 1994. While it has made progress in delivering education and welfare benefits to a wider share of society, South Africa today is actually worse off than it was 30 years ago, with a third of the population out of work and the gap between rich and poor wider than ever. The World Bank in 2022 ranked the country as the most unequal in the world based on the Gini coefficient. Even though schools are no longer segregated, many public schools in black majority communities are still largely underfunded, resulting in uneven access to higher education among different ethnic groups. Youth unemployment is particularly high, among the highest in the world. Now, to get a sense of how South Africa's economy is performing, let's cross now to Johannesburg to speak with Dr. Azar Jammine, Chief Economist at the think tank Econometrix. Azar, thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, South Africa enjoyed strong growth post-apartheid, but it has stagnated in recent years. Per capita GDP has actually declined significantly since peaking in 2011. What's been happening?
Essentially, you had fundamentally a change in the regime of the ANC in 2007, with the president at the time, Thabo Mbeki, basically being asked to leave office prior to the end of his term. And at the time, South Africa's economy was growing by 5% per annum. And what followed was Zuma took over as president and started messing up many of the institutions in order to try and benefit some of his friends and associates, in particular a notorious Gupta family that started dictating who he should put into what positions. And in particular, the state-owned enterprises involving electricity, transport, airlines, armaments, all of those started being very poorly managed. And not only did they start being poorly managed, but they also started embarking upon very corrupt activities, trying to secure tenders. A lot of money that should have been going towards infrastructural development instead went into the pockets of these individuals. And after a few years of this, one started seeing the close correlation between South Africa's economy and that of the world economy starting to divide. South Africa's economy since around 2012 has grossly underperformed the global economy. Over the past decade, per capita GDP has fallen by 6%. And this is quite tragic because one realizes that the economy could have done so much better under a different government. When Ramaphosa took over as president, he's tried to fix some of the things, but it's been a very slow process, and the economy is growing at around 1% per year at the moment.
So chronic corruption and mismanagement resulting in crippling infrastructure, that's a major issue. With the state utility Eskom regularly carrying out power cuts for years to prevent grid collapses, how bad is this crisis going on currently?
Right now, the news is a little more favorable. Suddenly, the power outages have been terminated, ironically, or maybe deliberately, and this is a big question, 2 months prior to the general elections. The delivery of containers through South African ports has improved slightly, and we are starting to see some criminals convicted of corruption, including the former Speaker of the House of Parliament being brought to book. So there has been some encouraging news from that point of view, but the question that is being asked is, will we see that continuing beyond the elections, or will the government of the day continue to soak a lot of the largesse of the economy for the benefits of just a handful of politicians?
So a slight encouraging news on that front. But the main issue in this election is unemployment. Why has the private sector failed to create jobs for millions of youths? And has the government taken measures to address the issue?
There are two major contributors here. The first is the educational system is just not producing the kind of skills that the economy needs, especially in the areas of mathematics and science, as well as literacy. The majority of South Africans are falling behind. Fortunately, there's a small segment of around 15% where schooling is excellent. The second big problem is the fact that the South African government has just not done anything to change the structure of the economy from one in which large monopoly-sized companies tend to dominate, and small business, which thrives through many emerging markets, is just not as does not thrive as much in South Africa. Small business takes strain, and much of the economic power is in the hands of the government, big business, and a very strong labor movement. And small businesses who try to work against just to employ people at whatever wage possible just don't manage to see the light of day.
So a mountain of problem awaiting the next government there. Well, Azar Jammine from Econometrix, thank you so much for your insight.